There she is. Is. Mm-mm-mm. Hey, Brooke.
Hi,
You look
sister.
so good,
Girl, so do you. I gotta keep up with you. I was like,
girl.
uh-oh, hold on, let me
Well,
find the right lighting. Wait, let me find
I'm
something.
trying to do it right now.
Well, I was like, I got a lot of competition. Not that there's competition, but I mean, I gotta look good, like you. So, thank you.
Please. I've been looking forward to this so much today. I was like, man, I have so many questions that I want to ask Brooke. And I was just telling everybody what we're hoping to do is really just lead by example on conversations that we should be having, and that they don't have to be perfect. Because I don't know a lot, you know, and I know
Yeah.
you don't position yourself as necessarily knowing a lot here either. But what we do know is we have to have hard conversations.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think, you know, for the joy set before Christ, he went to the cross, right? So I think that sometimes joy is the embodiment of presence and connection and
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So yes, we're gonna do hard things, but it's because of the joy. It's because we already have unity. It's because
Right.
we already have unity.
That's
Like we
right.
can agree to disagree about whatever we want to, if we want to, I guess, if there's
Yeah.
something that we want to do that with, because we already have unity. We already have love. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm not anticipating hard, but maybe I'm
Yeah.
probably because I
Yeah.
feel
No,
like we're
so
both made for it.
correct. And I don't necessarily think that it's hard for us, but what I'm
Mm,
hearing is these are hard conversations for people to initiate. These are hard conversations for people to sit in. Um, I know I've had some recent hard conversations in some of my closest like friend circle,
mm.
and it to go. I left feeling but I'm like, okay, we just have to keep having these conversations. Um, are you still there? It's
Feel like
circling.
you're.
Are you still there? Hold on. Are you there, Brooke? Okay, there it is. Yeah,
I'm
so
sorry. Is
that's
that
one of
me?
the
I
things.
apologize.
No, that's all right. Um, so I don't think I think every time I've ever spoken with you really really wholeheartedly and we've sat here, it's never felt hard or uncomfortable for me at all. But I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge like the messages and the calls that I get letting me know like, you know, people are nervous about having these conversations. And it seems to me oftentimes um, the white women in my world are, I set them at ease, but they're afraid to say the wrong thing.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, I
that's why
mean,
I said, well, if we just assume that you love me and you, if I know I love you, then I'm going to
hmm
assume the best of you. Even if you say something that I'm like, that's a little sideways. I'm not gonna attribute malicious intent to it.
yeah, thank you. And I appreciate that. And I think it's the other, I mean, I think it goes both ways, right? That's why I think like interpersonal connection,
Mm-hmm.
like the real change is going to happen in the everyday. The
Yes.
real change is going to happen in an opportunity to sit down with you today. A
Yeah.
real change is going to happen when I'm sitting with my boys at coffee. You know,
Yes.
like that the real thing like we're thinking we have to do something outside of the moment we're in. The moment we're in is to engage in the conversations, to challenge the norm, to hear a different thing. I know when I got silent, I started to hear racism in a different way.
Yeah.
It's just, I just became aware. I had an awakening to it. I just had
Yes.
never, but it's in those moments, it's in those relationships that things are really going to change when we challenge each other and we trust each other enough to be challenged
Yeah.
and pressed into and then changed. I don't think
Yeah.
it's going to be, for at least for me, I'm not going to marches. That's not my thing. I don't, it's, but I'm really alive to what I want to communicate. I'm really
Yeah.
alive to what I'm sensing. I'm really alive to who I'm impacting in my everyday. And I'm believing that those kinds of things really do change, really
I
do make a
do.
difference.
I do. I believe in the power of the little things. So I believe in the power of these conversations. And you're right. It is in the everyday. It's not like this one moment, like a friend, I think a friend sent it to me or somehow it came across my feed where these police officers down here in Charlotte, there was a barrier between the police officers on the right side, and there were, and I think I sent this to you, and there were protesters peacefully on the left side of it. And they went up to the black guy goes up to the fence, and there are like 3 or so white police officers over here, and they go up to the fence, and I do remember feeling a little bit like, what's about to happen, Jesus? What's about to happen? And then the white guy sticks his hand out and it's like wanting to shake, and then I think they hug, but then the police officers take a knee. And I shared this, and one of my friends, who is a white guy, he was like, yeah, this is great. He goes, but, you know, and he made an astute point, you know, like, this still doesn't fix the systemic racism and things like that. And I was like, true, but it's not meant to fix. It's meant to be a starting place, because there's no fix. There's no fix. There's no one. Well,
this is the fix, though. Right. It's the little things. That's the thing. Is everyone's, you know, it's like the Lord is very clear. Don't despise the day of the little things, because the little things matter. You know, you get so discouraged right away when we're not overnight successes. And when people go, holy yoga, like, oh my gosh, it's like so new. I'm like, I have been digging this trench for 12 years. What you mean? Wait, overnight.
Right. I think Alicia Keys said that, kind of like any overnight success in Hollywood is like 10 years in the making.
Please, at least.
Yes.
And if you're in ministry, it's 25 years.
Right. And that's exactly what we're saying. The small things, man. The small things.
It is really about the small things.
It is.
Yeah.
I was like, well, you know, because if we keep looking for this like big thing, we're never going to see it. But we'll miss doing the little things.
I wept when I saw that video. I was like, yes, that's right. You know, they took a knee, and, you know, humble. When you approach a situation that you are unsure of, go low.
That's right, girl.
Just go low.
That's right.
Just put your house down for a minute. You know what I'm saying? Like,
shh. You don't have to. Nope.
We don't need any more words. We don't need any more knowledge. We just need presence. We need to sit in each other's presence. We need to look at each other in the eye.
Yes.
We need to feel each other. Like our last conversation, I felt you deeply.
Yeah.
Like, I feel you. I know you in a way that I didn't know you before. It was vulnerable and beautiful and incredible and an honor, you know? And so, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it's like, so go low. I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. And so being humble enough to go, I don't know what I don't know. I don't know. And I'm okay with not knowing.
Right.
But I'm not okay with staying not knowing. I'm just okay with not knowing, but also committed to holding space to know, and then to do according to my new know. It's not enough to just know. You got to do a new do after you know.
To change. To transform.
You have to do a new do after you know a new know.
I like it.
Come on, put it on a magnet. Put it on a magnet.
I love it.
Okay.
I love it.
Go, girl. What were you going to say?
I had a question for you.
Okay.
So I wanted to ask, like, for the white people who are feeling like this reticence to acknowledge privilege, and B, like, want to be a part of anything about Black Lives Matter. What do you think's going on there? Help me.
Say it again. I don't say
like
again.
The white people who don't want to acknowledge that there's a such thing called white privilege.
Okay.
Let's deal with that one first. What do you think's going on there? Why?
Okay, a couple of things. As a woman, a white woman of privilege, right? Like, if we're looking at the spectrum, right? Okay. So here's what's going on for me. I'm shocked at how duped I've been by the same system that has, like, I feel oftentimes that we are gnawing on the same stick. The same stick is,
that's exactly right.
And we're on opposite sides of the stick, and they made it that way. They made it that we would be on opposite sides of the stick. And so part of my awakening is like, oh my God, I feel like I've been duped by the system. Like I didn't realize, do you know what I'm saying? I just
Hmm.
didn't know what I didn't know. And so this rage against the machine,
Hmm.
the system, I I feel it for blacks
Hmm.
and I feel it for myself because I'm a white woman brought up in the same system and I'm enraged. I'm pissed. I'm pissed that it's disgusting. I didn't know it. It's not like, you know, growing up as a white woman of privilege when I was even young that I had an awareness. I
Yeah.
grew up in the same toxic, disgusting system built for me to hate you and you to hate me. And
Yeah.
I'm disgusted by that. So
Yeah.
number one, I'm like, oh my gosh, wow. And not, and then my rage and to go, oh my God, now I have empathy for what I know now about the black plight and the black angst and what I know now. I can't not know that. And so to then absorb that and go, oh my God. So for me, my process as a white woman
Yeah. That's what I'm
of
asking.
privilege is to say like I had to get a grip on
Yeah.
my own self and then recognize my place in the system. Because if
Hmm.
I want to be a part of changing the system, then I need to know what part I'm playing in the system. So for me, part of this is going, where am I? What am I doing? What am I fostering? And then how do I change? How do I become and be the thing I want to be, not just talk about it? I don't want to just talk about it. I always say, if I'm giving people tools and they're putting them in their tool belt, that's like a failure for me. I
Hmm.
want to put something in their hands so that they can build something new with it,
Ooh, yes.
right? Like I don't need to populate your tool belt. I need to give you a tool that you don't want to put down, that is starting to build in a new way. So first of all, I if this for me, it's I'm becoming aware.
Yeah.
The denial of
Hmm.
such I can't even speak to because it's just so unfathomable to me
Yeah.
that somebody would even assert that there's not like a
Right.
overt
Hmm.
systemic
Yeah.
societal prejudice. I mean, it's asinine. I feel like if they would, I would have no respect for even the conversation or to have it because
Right.
it's so ignorant. So so
Yeah.
that's my take on that as
Okay. I
but and
needed
then
that.
I forgot the second part
So
of
the
your
second
question.
part is those people who are like reticent to support anything Black Lives Matters. It's like you can feel it in their energy. Like, I was just recently asked, like, okay, and almost like exhausted with me, exhausted with
Oh,
me, um, for wanting to be very consistent that Black Lives Matter and being like, okay, I get it. George Floyd, it was really sad, but I mean, how many Black people kill Black people? And I was like, I thought immediately of you. You know why I thought of you? Because I thought, I don't need any more facts. I don't need another. I was like, my girl Brooke was like, I don't need any more facts. I don't need any more facts. And I felt like I was being called to issue facts. And I'm like, this is not, just so you know, pain is pain, right? So if I have pain over here, I'm not refuting the pain over here. Yes, murder, period, is wrong. But don't you think that it's more odoriferous and wrong to murder someone predicated upon their race? Don't you think that's even worse? They're both bad. But right now, just because I'm focused on the mens rea behind killing Black people, I don't feel like that's taken away from, the white officer who's killing a white person over here. I'm like, that shouldn't happen either. So
hmm.
we're saying the same thing. That shouldn't happen. But we all should also say it should not happen that a Black person has a greater likelihood of having an interaction with a police officer and in being wounded or dead.
Yeah, but you know, it goes back to those facts, though. You know, even
Yeah,
those are even facts, right? We
you're
just
right.
go, here's the truth. It sucks.
It
Here's
does.
the truth. Like, and I think that I think what we have to have tolerance for as we navigate this is that we're all called to advocacy in a
Yes.
different way. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, so
True.
there needs to be, um, like for me, like I love your feed. I love your passion. I love your compassion. I love that you're highlighting the good as much as the bad, quote
Yeah.
unquote. And what I mean, I'm air quoting
Yes.
bad, like what's perceived to be bad. I don't think the rage and the riots necessarily are bad. Don't don't
You know, I
unfollow
understand
me
what
when
you're
I say
saying.
that. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But what I'm saying is there is an appropriate expression.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I love your advocacy. And so because I know you, I have a great respect for whatever you advocate for. Will my advocacy match yours? Probably not, because I am an advocate for, you know, whatever the thing,
Yes.
or but whatever the thing, or whatever the thing. Like my girlfriend Bonnie is like a huge advocate in with pride, you know, and
Yeah.
so her advocacy will be in that, you know, and so I think there's got to
And
be a
you
tolerance for where we advocate, and that's not to
absolutely
say that Black lives don't matter. They do
right.
matter, but they do more than matter. They actually count. They inspire.
That's right.
They generate. They innovate. They do more than matter. Even
Yeah.
matter to me is like, matter. Of course they
Right.
matter, right? I go
Right.
there, but there's so much more. They're rich of
Mm-hmm.
capacity and full of life and vibrancy. And so
Right.
I wouldn't even stop. Like my advocacy would go, I'm going to stop. It matters. I mean, they're everything. They're
That's
everything. They're everything that life is.
that's right. I mean, I feel the same way. And thank you for saying that. And also thank you for talking about, um, advocacies, whether it matches or not. We don't care, because I'm always about like, don't criticize any good. Don't
That's
criticize
right.
any good. Like when Oprah years ago started a school in South Africa, people had a nerve to be like, well, why didn't you start a school here? I'm like, well, then start a school here. But don't criticize good. There is enough horrendous things happening in this world to
Yeah,
criticize good. So
that's
I
right.
hear you exactly. Like wherever your advocacy is, it was more the kind of what I felt was this reticence to like, why do you want to support this? This is kind of like this bad thing. And I'm like, oh, I don't think I feel this just because I'm Black. I think I feel it
Yeah.
because I'm human. And truly, I do believe that I would be probably just as passionate, um, if I had come to this world with different skin. But my skin has helped me learn pain early,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
learn pain and disenfranchisement,
Mm-hmm.
learn being
Well, there,
the, go ahead.
there's just such an added layer, because like everything you're talking about is a very human condition, and that's why we can feel this human angst, right? Like
Yeah.
when we see our Black brother and sister, for me, that is, I feel it, because we have a human, we are humans. We are the
Right.
same race. There's one race. We've deluded ourselves to believe that we're somehow superior or different from one another. It's called the human race. There's
That's
one
right.
of them, you know? And so I have this deep empathy. And so there's this brokenness that we all come into the world with, right? Like, but then because of what the systemic racism has done, it has added an entire another set, a data set
Mm-hmm.
upon my Black brothers and sisters that is not only unfair and unconscionable, it's disgusting and debilitating, of which I want to be a change, because I
Right.
agree
That's why it's
wholeheartedly.
extra
You go,
painful when
right,
someone
that's what I'm
denies that it
saying.
exists. You're like,
Right,
if I am telling you my stomach hurts, there's no discussion. There's no
yes,
discussion. You don't have to be like, well, it's not really hurting. Bitch, it is hurting. It is
yes,
hurting, and I need some Pepto Bismol.
right, that's right. That's right. That's right. I get it.
You
Yes,
know, I
a
just,
hundred percent.
that's the part. It's like, it almost feels
Like it's always been.
like, yes, like, don't,
Yes, girl, I
like
get
if
you.
someone, I feel like who we're called to be as children of God and people who recognize ourselves as children of God, we are called to care.
Yes,
And if someone is telling me they're in pain, the answer is not, you're not really in pain. And you should, or oh, this is the worst part. You shouldn't be in pain.
mm,
You're not really in pain and you shouldn't be in pain.
mm,
I'm like, well, it's not about a shoulda, coulda, woulda. If I'm hurting, I'm hurting. You
right,
know, that
yes,
that part has been it's exhausting. You know, it's a little
Yeah.
exhausting, and it feels like I was speaking to a 64-year-old Black male today who I'm trying to talk into letting me interview him, who was a former police officer and also a former, like the first chief of police in his southern town, like a big deal. And he was like, well, you know, Shay, he's so passionate about stuff, but he's like, you know what? You know what I want to tell you? When I was a little boy and I had to go to the movie, and I would go to the movie theaters, and I would go and buy my ticket, and then they would give me back the ticket, and I'd walk out and then go around the back to go in. He goes, you know, it didn't really bother me at that time, which I can go off on that in a minute. He's like, it really didn't bother me. It would be years later when it bothered me. And I said, yes, but here's the worst part about it. It did bother you. And even if you had learned to socially, you know, make yourself socially adept to handle it and deal with it just because this was the norm, it was taking a little something out of you every time, because those types of rules were meant to do one thing: keep you in your place. And you can't have that thing happening and not feel the hurt of it. Like, if you think about microaggressions,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, by the time you're like 20 years old, Black in this country, how many hard, like traumatic hurt feelings? Like when I'm dealing with my husband not being well, I learned this the hard way, because I just was like, I got to take a 30-day, you know, reprieve from work. Even if you feel all right, you're not tricking your body. Your soul and your body is taking in the stress, is taking in the trauma. So even though he felt like he was all right, that stuff is traumatic to you. And
No
it's
question.
traumatic telling you to stay in your place. And
That's right.
so right now, the hard conversation that I had is every time I felt like I was just trying to say, not that I'm even for looting or even for rioting, but an understanding like this was going to happen. I felt like every time I said that, the person perceived me as kind of lauding or celebrating the some of the negative or bad outflows. That's not what I am. Not being like, oh, that's so great, they burned down 2 of your banks. But what I am going to acknowledge is there's no way that we could have treated a group of people a particular way consistently, and the shit we see didn't happen. There's no way it was going
Mm-hmm.
to happen.
Well, and I mean, I think that's the festering wound. Like when something is sick and festering and wrong, you know, when something is not well, it's going to surface. And when it surfaces, it's not pretty. I mean, it's a virus, it's a sickness, it's a whitehead, it's a zit, I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever, you know,
No.
but it's a festering, it's what's inside bleeds out. And you're right. Like there has been a, you know, when you think about a collective trauma and then you think about the generational impact of collective trauma.
Yeah.
So you start to put centuries and you string centuries together of a people group who have been not only marginalized, but treated so subpar that it's unconscionable. So you
Right.
carry with the people walking around the earth right now carry 7 generations before them. So there's
Yes.
700 years of angst that has been built up, you know, with no pressure. Nobody's taking the lid off. And so
Yeah.
to your point, you're right. And my pastor, my dear friend, my mentor, my teacher, Tyler, said something the other day, and I was like, oh, that's so good. He goes, you know, we're all part of the same body, and don't turn me off yet. Don't
No,
turn me off, because
no,
you know you start to hear that, and I was like, oh, here we go,
right.
equality.
No,
But
I'm
what I'm saying, he said, you know, we're all part of the same body, and sometimes you can be sick in one side of the body and it manifests somewhere else.
That's
And
so
so
true.
what we're finding is
Like
this
acupuncture.
white part, yeah, this white part of our body is deficient
Mm-hmm.
because the black part of our body is wildly hurting.
Yes.
This is evidence of them being hurting, them reaching out, needing attention, needing equilibrium, needing healing. And it's exposing the deficiency in the other part of our body, which happens to be our white body, of
Yeah.
privilege and of
Mm-hmm.
not understanding. And but also they like, there's an angst that I carry inside of me, this human angst that we were talking about, and then we
Yeah.
get a double portion. And then we go, okay, so we're villainizing the system, which it's absolutely evil. So hear me,
Yeah.
systemic complete evil.
Mm-hmm.
We're villainizing it, but part of the tactic I've seen is the machine gets us to fight one another.
Absolutely.
And as we're fighting one another, it, you know, it tightens its grip, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what we're seeing. It's still working. And
Yeah.
that's part of the systemic racism. It's, but they know that we will bite each other's faces off. And
Yeah.
so the idea is like, okay, can we not bite each other's faces off?
Right.
Can we, those are the kinds of things that I'm encouraged by. And I forgot what I was talking about. I forgot what the first question was. I don't know how I even got here,
That's
to be
right. I'm
honest. I
listening.
just fell right into a hole.
I love it. No, no, you know what I was thinking while you were talking? Great. I love it. And I want you to know, as your sister who's Black, it it does my heart so good to hear a white woman acknowledge those things, because it is truly traumatic when someone tries to tell you that you're not
Mm,
hurting and that you shouldn't be hurting. And you know, to your earlier point about we're chewing on the same bone, we're gnawing on the same, just from two. Absolutely, I say that all the time. We're all fed the same bag of goods. So like, and typically I've found that it's been my experience that a lot of white women have been unable to acknowledge the racism part, but they can acknowledge the sexism part. And this is what I tell people. I'm like, so that you can kind of get this, is no one ever sits a girl down. There might be some like outliers who are just crazy, but no one has ever sat you down and said, Brooke, I got a couple things I need to tell you here. There is an inverse relationship between your value and your age. The older you get, the less valuable you will be in society. Second, you better stay sexy and beautiful, because the less sexually desirable you are to a male, that also diminishes your value. Third, also, if you're fat, shit's gonna be bad for you, because that makes you even more less sexually desirable to men. So, in order to keep your cachet up, you're gonna need to stay young, skinny, and I just forgot the other thing, but young, skinny, and oh yes, and as pretty as could be, right?
mm-hmm. Yep.
So my point is, did anybody ever tell you that?
No.
But you know it, don't you?
Yeah.
See, that's my point. So do I, because we've been fed it. No one has ever sat me down and gave me like, hey, you are Black, you are not gonna be, you're not as good. No one thinks you're, no one's, well, in the Black culture, you kind of have to prepare your children. So my mom always told me, you're gonna have to come and bring it and be like double whatever is in that room just to be considered valuable enough to enter the room. It's that old Chris Rock joke that's like, we will know when we reach equality when Black people can be average, when I can be average, and I don't always have to be the mother flipping rock star to enter the room. Because I sit around the table with a lot of white people who are not rock stars, but I have to be the rock star.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, if people could understand that, like, hey, just like we all bought the bag of goods, that our value as a woman is absolutely tied to our youth, our
Our beauty.
beauty, our
Mm-hmm.
skinniness,
Mm-hmm.
then we can understand
Mm-hmm.
that Black people, and here's the beautiful
Mm-hmm.
part too, to your gnawing of the bone, Black people, white people, Asian people, Latino people, we're all hearing the same thing.
Yep. Yep.
And that's why you can even see it in different nationalities, different ethnicity groups, where there will be a favoritism for that which is lighter skin, that
It's
which gets
true.
closer and closer to white, that which deviates greater from white. The more wrong it gets, the more wrong it
It's
gets.
unfortunate. Yeah, and you're right. To your point, it is in different races, and it is. I mean, in the Indian culture, the dark-skinned Indians and the light-skinned. I mean, it's true. I don't know why. I don't
Colonization
know.
taught us that.
Right.
Colonization taught us
I
that.
don't even know what I. You know more than I do. You
Because
probably forgot more than I've ever
we
known.
both were British colonies, both India and the Bahamas. We
Yeah.
both were British colonies. So we learned that. We learned
Mm-hmm.
what is more esteemed. And oddly enough, I think that humanity also has bought this bag of goods, that your value can only be fully appreciated and seen in direct relationship to another. Something has to be less for you to be better. For you. So then we have to go into societies and find out, oh, it got stuck. Then we have to go into societies and you will see a propensity to be like, okay, who am I better? So that's the bag of goods too. Like if we can establish that we are valuable, not in a comparative analysis, we are valuable.
No
Then I
question.
don't have to be the light skinned one. I don't have to, it's always trying to find who can be under your feet so that you can be better.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And I mean, I have so much to say on that. Um, that's the unity
Mm-hmm.
that we can agree to disagree and still have unity. And
Yes.
so there's that, but then there's also value and worth. And so I do this teaching oftentimes that
Give it to me.
your worth is established by your value
Mm-hmm.
is directly tied to your worth, because the value of something is what somebody is, or the worth of
Mm-hmm.
something is what somebody would pay for it.
Sure.
So value and worth are directly connected. And so it's like, okay, so I have to understand that my savior, what God went all the way, like paid
Yeah.
the ultimate price for me. And so if value and worth is associated with what one pays for something, I
Mm-hmm.
have to understand what the debt was, what the recompense was, and
Mm-hmm.
how I have been reconciled.
Sure.
Um, so, oh, I lost my train of thought. That's what
That's all right.
happens
It'll come back.
when I'm in it. Hold on. What were we just saying? Oh, value and worth.
Valuation. And
So yes, so if he went all the way for me, then my value and my worth are secured.
that's right.
So I think it's only found in your connection to the divine. I don't care what the connection is, okay? So I'm not even here to like convert and talk, you know what I mean? I know what I believe,
Right.
I know what I believe, but I'm just saying whatever that the definition of self and value and worth needs to come from something beyond self
Yes.
that is willing to give it all for the
Yes.
thing, for you. And
Right.
to my knowledge, the truth, the life is the only thing that's able to do that for me. So
Yeah.
my value and my worth is secured. Now, in the places, because I am a broken human being, in the places that I don't really believe that, because yes, that's true over the banner of my life, but there are places inside of me that
Ooh.
don't know that, right?
Yeah.
So
And are not
those,
walking out in that truth.
no, they're
Mm-hmm.
not. Oh, no, they're
Mm-mm.
not.
Nope.
They're arrested in some alternate, you know, development,
Yeah.
right? In some previous place. And so when we go back and challenge the places that don't believe our worth and our value, it's
Yeah.
where we find our freedom, and it's where we find our compassion, and it's where we find our empathy. And in that endeavor to change and or to charge the darkness, if you will, of our own inadequacy, that is what's going to create the opportunity for compassion and empathy for self, so that we can hold space for you. We can hold
Yes.
space for others because we have space. Amen. So
Yeah.
we know ourselves, so I think that it's the value and worth thing is I keep getting hijacked in my mind, so I know it's good. I know what we're talking about is good, so we
Oh,
just
this
got to
is
keep
good.
pressing on.
Yeah.
But I sometimes get hijacked when I'm on a roll, so we'll
That's
just
right.
we'll just chalk it up. And my girlfriend Dusty, she's my healer. She always snapping, so now I find myself snapping. Like I don't know what this even does, but now I'm
I'm doing it with you. No,
trying
and
to
I
get
hope
the
I wasn't
demon.
coming off, harsh when I was just speaking my heart. That wasn't the goal. My goal wasn't to come off angry, because I really am not angry. I'm just processing,
It's okay if you are
processing.
angry.
Well, thank you. But I don't even feel a sense of I just was like taking it in, when just sitting in the feeling of being told your pain isn't real and you shouldn't even feel it.
Yeah, it's so inappropriate.
It,
I
it
mean,
feels it feels hard, and I just was like, oh, I'm. It's just been a little bit. It's been a little. You
yeah,
know what? It's exhausting, to be
yeah, it
honest.
is, girl. So I had this thing, maybe this will relate to you. I don't know.
Give it to
Maybe
me.
not. I don't know. I think this is part of the human condition too. When we get traumatized, there's parts of us and fragments of ourselves that are just kind of left in the wake. And when not tended
Ooh,
to, they run the show, right?
they
The trauma
do.
and the drama and the fear and all of that. So I had this session with my healer. Her name's Dusty, and we were doing this breath work, and we've been working on my right hip for a long time. And I like came out of body, and not out of body, like don't get crazy, right?
No.
But I mean, I'm having like an encounter. And I'm looking at myself and I feel like I'm talking to Jesus. So I know I'm talking to like God or something, but I don't see him or anything. But I'm an adult and I'm looking at myself and I'm like I almost look like I'm like a 2-year-old in an edamame pod. Do you know what I'm
Oh,
talking about? Like
yes, I
all curled
do.
up
Yes,
like that. I'm
yes.
looking at myself. I'm like, oh, like that's what I liken it to. It's like a little pod and I'm not moving and I'm not crying. Maybe I'm sleeping. I don't know what I'm doing, but I look to God. I don't know who I'm talking to, but it's not a face, but I'm talking. And he
The
says,
energy.
yeah. And I go, well, I got to go fight for her. He goes, like, she doesn't need to be fought for. She needs to be held. Well, no, I mean, I got to go fight for her. I got to go fight. He goes, well, if she needs to be held and you're out fighting, who's holding her,
Who's holding
right?
her?
Like who's holding her? And then when I kind of got my mind around that for a moment, I was like, oh, and then the voice said to me, and if you're that committed to fighting for her, how much chaos do you go out and create? How much fight do you go out and find because you're so committed to fighting her when she doesn't need to be fought for, she just needs to be embraced.
She just needs to.
And
Oh,
I'm like, oh hell yeah. You know what I mean? Like I'm a fighter. I'm scrappy.
yeah.
Girl,
You are
you
scrappy.
do not want to mess with me. You hold my hoops. You know
I,
what I'm saying? Like I grew up, you hold my
right,
hoops, right?
right. Taking
I
my
can
big clothes
handle me
off.
some, I can handle me some, right? Grew up
Right.
in Tucson. But I
I don't have the same luxury. I'm like, I grew up in Freeport. No,
right.
doesn't do the same thing.
No, no, it doesn't have the cred.
No,
Sorry.
doesn't. No street creds at all. I grew
I
up on an
digress.
island, ocean, bay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no.
White sand. No. Okay.
I will tell you this about me though, Shane. Maybe you know, maybe I told you this, maybe I didn't. I grew up in Tucson,
Uh-huh.
and I was part of a program called the Magnet Program. And so what that
Oh, you went away.
program was about primarily was I'm here.
Okay, good.
What it was primarily about that program was diversification. So my girlfriend, one of my very best friends, her name's Shiloh, since I'm 9 years old, because we went to school together. We were bused into an inner city school, and we were less than 8% of the school's population. They bused us in, and so I grew up in that system. Like my grandparents were very wealthy and affluent, and everyone's like, why are you going inner city school? And I'm telling you, it's the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I know how to get along with everybody. I have a deep respect. And so I would say that there are white people, even of privilege, and maybe even especially that have sought and been a part of real change. Because I think we have changed in the last 50
Absolutely.
or 60 to 75 years. And so for me, like I think there are people too that go, I didn't even realize that it was that bad of a problem because I thought we were doing better, you know,
Yeah.
like I really did. And so this has
Yeah.
been really awakening for all of us. And I think especially those of us that are like, wow, if I'm not doing enough, I'm willing to do more, whatever it
Right.
takes. Right.
Right. And by the way, yes, we all know whether you're a person of color or not, anything that's ever moved the needle in the United States of America, there always had to be a whole bunch of good white people who wanted it to move. It couldn't
Yeah.
just been in order for the slaves to have been free, it couldn't have just been the black people wanted to be free. There
Right.
had to have been white people who were allies and who were like,
Yeah.
this is wrong. I
Yeah.
remember, I mean, and then you feel it in the everyday here in, both you and I identify as Christians or, people who believe it. Because when I say that, I'm like, well, because I don't look like that. So,
Mm.
but I am someone who identifies as believing in the lordship of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And I, I'm just like the church, like the Southern Baptists. You ever thought about the Southern Baptists? Why do we have the Southern Baptists? So there was this council in the Southern Baptists, and I believe it happened in the early 1900s. I should know the date. I want to say like 1940 something, or actually, no, I think it happened in the 1800s. But the reason why they had Southern Baptists and Northern Baptists, the Southerners, I think it's like the Council of 1864. The Southerners were like, the Baptists called themselves together to declare and wonder and process the information that on the table was, can we keep our slaves? And the Southerners were like, yeah, absolutely. And the other ones were like, it's hard for us to reconcile this. And so there was a splitting. And that's the split of why you have Southern Baptists, because they were arguing to keep, and I'm like, at what point is there like a dissonance of what we, you know what I mean? What we believe in our hearts.
At
and
what
the
point?
things that we do. At what point is there a dissonance? Because I'm thinking,
girl, at what point isn't there a dissonance?
right. You know what I mean?
That's the real deal. Like, I'm just saying, like, right?
Yeah.
Like that yes, there's dissonance. Yes, it's unconscious. I mean, when
It's
you
weird.
read the word of God, well, it just is so
Bizarro.
man. It's just so broken and it's just so carnal, you know?
When I married into, you still there? When I married into the family that I married into, my husband was told, I want to make sure, my husband was told that by his mother that her prayer group was praying against this. And I remember being like, I got two questions. A, who are you praying to? B,
right.
What does that prayer sound like? Can you just give me a little bit of it? Because you know how when you say something that's wrong, you recognize how wrong it is, right? When you hear yourself saying the words, I'm like, what do those words, what did that, dear Lord
Say
Jesus,
it again.
please keep
Say
that
it again.
nigga. Like, what does that sound like? Because
I'm laughing. I'm laughing. I'm not laughing. I'm laughing
right.
at your storytelling is what I'm laughing at, because you're the best storyteller on the planet. So
Well,
I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at the content.
But I just always was wondering, like, I don't know. I've been unable to reconcile. Now, I want to say this. It's not that I don't have things that I believe and hold true that aren't based in truth, and I know that they're wrong. But the part that gets most scary for me, like the glasses, the part that gets most scary for me is those who, I have things that are wrong in me that don't line up with what I believe is the word of God. I have those things in me. But what I don't do is I don't hold on to those things that don't line up and declare them righteous. I don't.
Yes.
I don't do that.
That's right. That's right. But you know, it's tradition, and church in particular serves the man. You know, church is supposed to serve God. It rarely does that well, you know?
Right.
So I think their structure is placed in their societal norms for man. That's what church is. Mm-hmm. And so, so yeah, it's an unfortunate thing, because the church seems to, that's why the word of God is so paramount, you know? Like, it's the thing that you have to have a relationship with yourself, because nobody can tell you what it is or what it's not or what it should be. You know, everyone else can tell you what your religious practice should look like, or what you should do, or what it looks like. But the word of God is the thing that, you know, transforms. So sorry.
No,
girl, I gotta go. You know, I'm a mama this week, and so my kids are calling me and blowing me up, and I'm late, and I love you. And
I love you. This is
so fantastic. Yes.
Thank you, sister.
Thank you. I love you so much. Okay. Bye, babe.